It's so relaxing.
Hey everybody, we are live here on Popcorn Planet, and I'm with my man Jody Joe in his new awesome studio gaming center. What is up, Jody?
What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Jody Joe, and I'm here on Popcorn Planet. Feels good to be back with my man Andy. I am in Studio B. I would like to take this moment to say thank you to all of the members of Jody's Corner and all of the donators, especially from last night when Sid B dropped $1,200 by himself. And then O'Shea said, okay, he dropped $1,000, bro. So this episode of my participating with this nerd version of Change My Mind is gonna be in honor of O'Shea Goodman and Sid B. I love y'all, man.
Oh my God, I love him too. Bravo, you guys stepping up, supporting like that.
Man.
That is insane. The most generous, most amazing fans in the world. I've seen a lot of them, but man, your fans are legit.
Thanks,
love
bro.
you guys. Thank you for supporting Jody, for coming supporting me. It's been awesome getting to know everybody, and bravo, you guys. Well, awesome. Good to know that. So let's really bring the energy tonight. So we have some fun. You guys send over. You send over the topics. We'll drop whatever you want. We'll talk about whatever you want. And there's some stuff to talk about tonight. WarnerMedia, HBO Max, AT&T, whatever you want to call them these days. They dropped a neutron bomb. And it's sad. I mean, a lot of people getting laid off. That is nothing to joke about. But lots of changes, restructuring happened, all under Jason Kilar. I did a video last night breaking down a lot of it. I'll bring up some of my feedback there too. But I wanted to really talk about that, lead our show, and get Jody's thoughts on this. Is this good for Warner Brothers? Is this good for HBO? Is this good for DC Comics? There's lots we're going to talk about there, as well as the new Spider-Man 3 alleged title. I want to complain about that because I don't like it. And Bel-Air, the new dark reboot of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Something's actually going to happen with that weird viral short from a while back. I want to get Jody's thoughts on that and talk about that. We're also going to be taking a lot of your comments, your questions, so send them over through Streamlabs. Thanks to everybody in the chat. I see so many members, all those members, moderators. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining in. Streamlabs is where you can interrupt the show, add your comments, support the channel. So you guys know how to do all that. So thank you guys for watching. Let's get to this main topic. I want to get to these massive layoffs. What do we think? I mean, Jody, I haven't gotten to see any of your feedback on this. What do you think about what's happening here? Do you think this? I mean, for those who don't know, about 800 people laid off, a lot of from DC Universe, DC Comics, Warner Brothers, all across the board. Expected to be even possibly some more, but all in a restructuring effort to sort of gain, basically putting HBO Max as top priority across the whole company. Jody, what are your thoughts?
So like when AT&T first came into the picture, I was kind of like hopeful that they was going to change things around for the better and finally call shots on the epic level. Little did I know that AT&T was like this big, huge, dark cloud that was going to put this storm over Warner Brothers and cock them to the point where they don't have power. And AT&T was putting out, let's do the Snyder. David Ayer, maybe. I mean, they were so active on Twitter and they were so un-Warner Brothers-like. And it was jarring at first. Then when you start to hear about DC fandom and all that stuff, that's something that we've never seen before with the DC film universe, and it's a breath of fresh air. It actually gave me life as a DC fan. Then in comes the 800 job layoff. And I'm like, okay, it's natural that a telecommunications company, one that used to be a monopoly some 30 years ago, AT&T comes in and takes over a media production studio. All right, changes are bound to be made. More specifically, that DC app. You know, that DC Universe app that had, Titans on there. It had a Harley Quinn show. But you have the DC app and then you have HBO Max. So I have to pay for the DC app and HBO Max when it's all the same company at the end of the day. So them phasing out the DC app makes a lot of sense. I'm fine with that. That's not a problem. But then seeing that all of these CEOs, CFOs getting chopped down, one of them head over the TV. I think it was Greenblatt head over the TV distribution, I believe. One of them who've been over at Warner Brothers for 6 acquisitions, over 30 years, and he is out of there. So that's like, okay, whoa. That's a huge shift. But it's hard to tell if that's really a good thing or a bad thing. One thing that I could say right now is universally like bad in my opinion is they cut the comic books down. They're starting to chop the block at comic book employees. So I'm like, media, I understand visual media, but why are comic books suffering? Because comic books are the source material that will eventually end up being the visual media. So I feel like some of this stuff is understandable, some of it is not, but time will tell. I would say from this day forward, you got about 2 years for me to see if these decisions were actually worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many topics here to talk about, and I'm curious. You guys in the comments can sort of dictate where we go. But I mean, what does this mean for the Snyder Cut? What does this mean for the comics in general? For hard copy, like actual physical media? What does this mean for DC? DC Universe sounds like that's gone. What does this mean though for HBO as a brand? Who's in charge of it now? So many things that now coming together. Like I'll be honest. The restructuring makes sense when you merge, and even when Time Warner did it, like you got to restructure. There's redundancies in a big corporation. A lot of people sort of having the same seeming job, and you got to make some tough cuts at that point instead of having these huge CEO level, salaries out there, and departments that sort of need to be redone if you're going to sort of let someone else be in charge. So while it sucks, and I can't go through all 800 people to see who was really worthy and who was not, it's never really worthy, especially right now in the world we have to give anybody a loss right now. Weeks before fandom, it's tough. At the same time, show business, not show friends, right? At the end of the day, like they had to do this move at some point. And so, we'll see, I think, in the months to come what this really means for the company. And then obviously in the years to come of whether it actually worked. I think putting HBO Max as its priority makes sense given the weight of where the industry is going with streaming. They clearly see that as a huge boom because let's start at comics for a second, Jody. Let's go there because from everything I've read, they're sort of they gutted a lot of people. Hollywood Reporter said roughly 600 layouts of WarnerMedia, including editors, a third of DC Comics editorial staff. And so everything I've read and sort of looked into is that they are going to be starting to take away serious cuts to actual physical comics. They're really going to lean into digital comics moving forward. And look, to be honest, a lot of their comics hadn't been selling that well. And so this was sort of a bummer, but it's a bummer in that they're, these job losses, but hope, they're going to refocus into a more better area where the comics become more exciting and we're interested again. But at the same time, this idea of leaving physical media, they want to get rid of the comic book. I read somewhere else that they're only going to be focusing on graphic novels and then some comics. But I see this as a death nail for comic book shops. Like at a certain point, if DC starts pulling, their books, physical books, it's like that's the comic shops will be the next thing to go. And then I like having physical copies of things to read. I don't like it all being digital on Kindles and stuff. Do you think this is a smart move though to pull from physical comics?
It is, man. It is. I ain't gonna lie. Digital comics are fantastic. They're fantastic when it comes to ease of use, ease of access, man, and a lot of those comic book channels they use digital comics to make their YouTube videos. So when it comes to digital media, the digital comics and someone in the comment section had a really good point. He says it's not good for me. The DC app is not just the shows; it's the comic book digital comics as well. So if that goes, he doesn't have access to the digital comics, and he said near his house. He don't even have a comic book shop after Bud Light took it out.
Right.
So for people like that, a lot of people in middle America, you live in Florida, I'm in LA, so we have access to these type of nerd type of comic book stores that are like a dime a dozen around here. But those people in middle America who are in rural areas, they don't have access like that. That's why they have to do like Amazon to get their physical media, get them shipped to their house and stuff like that. But that will not replace going to the comic book shop, looking at the new releases, getting that baby, smelling that baby, and then buying that baby and reading that baby. You know what I mean? There's nothing that's going to replace that. So it's like a double-edged sword. You love the digital comics, but it looks like AT&T is like, it's digital or nothing. And it's like the comic book shops are going to suffer, and that's what you don't want.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I see a lot of people saying, I don't have a comic shop. I mean, I've always had one near, but I guess I've always been in major cities, even in Tampa. There's like 3 comic shops at least here. And Rogue Comics, our viewer who calls in sometimes, his shop. I mean, there are comic shops still in the world. It's not like they're video stores. But yeah, I know they're harder to sustain. And so at the same time, though, I have trouble buying like the issues. I do prefer when it's all sort of in one book. Like the graphic novel is typically what I do, but I'm not a comic nut. But at the same time, I'm getting my kids into them, and he loves getting some. I'll go there to get stuff for him. And so the physical media, I think, is something that you just got to touch and reading. It's a bummer to go, but I understand you're right. And then obviously there's distribution and printing costs that now go out the window, and that's going to start happening across the board, right? That's why HBO Max. That's why HBO Max is such a an important thing for everybody, because they can avoid distribution. They're like, well, we own it. Disney Plus, everybody, they're realizing, well, crap, Netflix is brilliant because now they own the method to distribute it, and then we can get all the money. We own it. The customers come to us, they pay us, we get the payout. And this Mulan thing that's happening, that is a bigger game changer than I think people are paying attention to. And honestly, I think all of us as consumers should not buy it because I think if we buy it, we are going to actually potentially ruin the way things are, because they're going to cut the theater and they're just going to take more money. And if they make more money doing it digitally through Disney Plus as an add-on, that's going to change the media as we know it. But staying on the Warner Brothers and all these layoffs and everything, comics, we've talked about that. All right, so it's a bummer. It is what it is, but it saves money.
We need that.
I can't argue with sort of where the tide is going, sadly. But that's the timing sucks with fandom.
Really think about it. It's 2020, and back when we were younger, Andy, in the 90s, we thought comic book shops would be around for forever. But then when you think about like what about 50 years in the future when there's flying cars? We couldn't imagine that we were going into no comic book shop. We would have thought that it would have been some type of advance for this. We're entering that future era.
I wanted to drive my flying car to the comic book record store. I don't know about you.
We're in that era where
Suncoast Video.
But look, Amazon. Walden Books.
I hate Amazon.
What was the other?
I love Amazon for the convenience, but dude, it's not the same as going and being like, oh, what's this? Oh, cool, this is out. Oh, it's like,
no,
it's not the same.
It's not just comic books. It's books. Period. It's printed media is going the way of the dodo, bro. Like Barnes and Noble out of business.
Yeah,
shutting down so many stores. Like, bro, it's comic books are lasting because they're cooler and they're edgy and they have so much art to them. But bro, like I feel like printed media will no longer exist.
No, disagree.
It'll be in the museum.
Books will always exist. You got to have a book. To read a book, you read a book. Good book, by the way. If anyone's
I'm not so sure in 100 years that we would have.
But I need to have the book. I need to earmark, hold it, and it's a process to read a book. And we all need to read more books. It makes us smarter. But I hear what you're saying. It is where the future is going, and it's frustrating. But I don't think you can eliminate all of it. And so they agree. It's like graphic novels are still a thing. They'll probably put the digital issues, and then they'll print out the successful ones in bigger prints that they'll sell at Target or Walmart is what you get your media now. But so there we go with that. What do we think about HBO Max? So Jason Kilar, who's now in charge of it all, has made it clear this is like the big priority. And he said in interviews that the reason he did all this was because he knew of the quality of HBO and he wanted to sort of stand by the quality. That's what separated them from everybody else. And he's right. HBO has had equality, but I worry now with all the stuff they're doing, if they just need to start spitting out whatever they can do, the quality is going to go out the window. Because no offense to Jason Kilar, but I guess offense to Jason Kilar, what content have you made, dude? You made Hulu. Cool. Tech guy, smart tech guy who sold it off to other companies and then, left and whatever. Like, okay, he gets the tech bubble, and that's why AT&T sort of brought him in to sort of make it more hip and make, Warner Brothers more, relevant to today's world and streaming. But my God, man, like, who is he? What content has he made to make these decisions? I'm sort of thrown for a loop. And so for him to sort of now be controlling, bringing his Hulu guys over to sort of turn over HBO, it worries me a bit. And I know some people who've been working on HBO Max originals, and they've made it clear, like, they are just not as good as HBO products. Like, they are definitely going to start, overdoing it and just sort of, we need content like Netflix does, and then suddenly you lose parts of you lose that quality is what I'm getting at. So what do we think about HBO? Well, before I get your answer though, I do want to call out, and I just saw Rogue Comics, our comic, there it is. Comic book shops may be closing, but Rogue's like, you know what? I'm becoming a member of Popcorn Planet. Thank you, Rogue, for joining us. Go check them out, support them. He's going to need it more than ever now with these news. Curious of your take. Drop me a line. I'm curious. And I got to think, I saw some of your chats. Let me get to a couple of them real quick. So Hosea, thank you for sending that love. I saw you early on with the first chat of the night. Thank you for sending that love with love. And Myra, well, so good to see you, Myra, on one of the live shows. I blame Diamond. They helped kill comics faster. Who's Is that a comic? I don't know. I'm not, clarify. Who's Diamond? Is that a publisher? That is a publisher, right? A comic publisher? I'll find out. And then we had another one, Myra. Amazon killed Borders and smaller bookstores. Facts. Amazon has killed a lot of businesses, and now the world Amazon we live in is killing a lot of small
AT&T
businesses.
In this instance, they're a digital media conglomerate. They're no different than what AT&T is doing.
And then Rogue, thank you for joining. And then we had one more here from Rael Williams. HBO Max is fire, fam. I need more Doom Patrol and Harley Quinn. So look, let's get to that. HBO Max doing these moves. They're big moves, and I can't say they're not. I can't say they're the wrong moves. To be perfectly honest, they suck for people who are losing their jobs, but you got to consolidate at some point if there's too many, things in charge. So is this good for HBO? Is this good for HBO Max? Currently HBO Max to me is actually pretty good for a library, but terrible from an original standpoint. Whereas HBO as a brand is still pretty solid. They're still, kicking out some good original shows. Yep. And HBO is still a big profit gainer for Warner Brothers Warner everybody, because they still have cable subscribers. And so it's an interesting thing that they're doing, because they're getting rid of HBO Go and HBO, whatever. But then it's like, what happens to the cable people? Because sure, everything's moving to streaming, but there's still a lot of revenue that HBO Max from their, subscribers who have strictly cable, right, Jody? So it's like, there's a lot of stuff maneuvering here where a big move like this could spook some of those other people. How do you think this? Do you think this helps HBO as a brand, which is even just complicated because
Spook who? What you said? Spook other people. Who are you talking about?
Well, it could spook investors. It could spook customers. They could be like, well, wait, why am I buying HBO on cable when they have this other streaming thing? And then I don't know how to use that streaming thing, so I guess I don't need to pay for HBO anymore. There's definitely two different demographics, right? I'm assuming there's like an older demographic who doesn't want to get into streaming, who still has cable television, right, and still pays for it and does it that way. And then I think there's a larger, growing, younger audience who's just like, well, no, I'm moving to this. I cut the cable. It's time to stream. That's what I've done. I've cut the cable and I'm watching it through all the streaming channels. But there are still people who buy cable, right, and HBO as a premium service. And they started that with HBO Now and HBO Go, where you could sort of buy it and take it on the go, I think, to get people used to it. But do we think, is cutting the HBO, does this focus on the HBO? Sorry, I'm confusing, but like the HBO customer who has cable, that's still a profit margin for Warner Brothers, right? And or do you sort of ignore that?
A dwindling one.
So I guess do you just ignore that and say whatever?
They're not even looking at that. They know, the streamers know the future is streaming. Cable's dying. They know that. They've already projected the next 10 years that there's going to be less than 10 million cable subscriptions. And they know the dominant platforms are going to be streaming. Let's really talk about something for a second. When Disney came in and they bought Marvel and they did the whole, and even like a year when they really took over a few months ago, they made some changes to little shows. Comics got little changes too, but it wasn't nowhere near as drastic as this. The only reason why this is drastic and things are shutting down is because of Bud Light. We're in a pandemic. That's the reason why a lot of this. It's not just because AT&T's like, in their defense. It's not because AT&T's like, yo, we took over. Shut that down, shut that down, shut that down. Kill that, kill that. They're trying to save money. And I don't know if we're going to talk about the games division, but allegedly there's confusion on if they're even going to sell Warner Brothers games or not.
Right.
They might even keep it now. I heard it's off the table. Like Microsoft was a huge buyer that was going to purchase, one of the ones that was in line to purchase Warner Brothers games from AT&T. Now we're hearing that they're trying to hold on to it and kind of really use the movies and games and comics as one trifecta. But bro, this is because of the pandemic why a lot of this shit is going down. If the pandemic wasn't here, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. They wouldn't be firing 800 people. Yeah, they would let go. Naturally, when a merger comes in, people are going to lose their job. It wouldn't be nowhere near as shattering headline news as 800 people. No, I don't think so at all. So let's just keep that in mind and understand the circumstance that we are in this climate right now with the pandemic going on.
Sure, and HBO game, it's true. There was rumors they were going to sell it, but now I heard that they aren't, and that's still available. So there's still a lot to be figured out from this deal. But I guess what I was getting at with sort of HBO is like, does HBO is that still a thing? Like, if HBO Max is just the new streaming service, what's HBO? Like, really HBO was always a channel, right? HBO was always like, here's the new movie, HBO movie.
It's an app.
Here's the, but as we become HBO Max, and then there's Seth Rogen's American Pickle.
HBO Max, there was a nice buffer of about 4 or 5 years where people just had the app, so you could pay that $15 without cable. So we're already used to having the app, paying separate, and when HBO Max came out, they blended that right on in, so it's not that drastic of a change, you know what I mean? So
yeah, but my point is, as we move forward and we get Green Lantern, Doom Patrol, all these things, right? American Pickle, that Seth Rogen movie, and then we're getting that new Ridley Scott movies coming out. Is this HBO?
Yeah. An Aquaman series is coming.
Is it now? It's a new. But you know what I mean? Like, HBO was a brand. Is a bar of quality. And now it's all sort of falling into HBO Max, is where I'm confused. Like, does HBO is HBO still going to make original series? You think?
They're still going to be HBO. They still have prime directors, producers, and writers over there making amazing content.
For that dwindling cable audience is what I'm getting at, though. You think that's still an important thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you put your focus on making something for HBO when now it's like, well, HBO Max is the priority? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's going to make the HBO brand start going down because they're going to say, well, no, just put it on HBO Max.
I don't think so, because nothing's changing at HBO. Like, when they're, I guess you're saying the cable add-on of what we're used to for the last 30 years.
HBO, yeah.
That studio, that building, that corporate headquarters that they operate and create in is not changing. It's just what they put out is going to be going to a digital platform more than do the cable with the service. I don't think the quality is going to dip at all. It's business as usual over there. I don't think they feel anything. In fact, I remember I read an article before this all went down. They increased their employee base. They hired hundreds of new employees to double down on making prime content for this wave that they predicted is going to come.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Are you saying putting out more?
Well, I guess
I don't know.
You make a good point, because it's like, even if they're making it for the HBO cable app or whatever platform, you can still drop those on HBO Max at the same time, so it's concurrent for both consumers. But I just think the lines are getting confusing, because it's like, well, what's HBO now? This is an HBO series.
Here's the future. Ain't gonna be no more cable HBO. That's not it. In 10 years. Ain't gonna be no cable. Turn on HBO on the cable. It's gonna be HBO Max streaming.
Right. So does that mean the next Game of Thrones or Sopranos? Do you put an HBO label on that, or do you put an HBO Max label on it?
It's all gonna be HBO Max. Nothing on everything. So
HBO is gonna go away. Is what I'm getting at. HBO is being upgraded into this new thing where anything they buy is HBO Max. So that's why I'm confused and why I'm worried, because it's like HBO was a studio. No longer separate. It's like, imagine it's Fox now under Disney is what it is. Fox is the HBO in this example.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I worry HBO is now going to be sort of like, oh, yeah, don't worry. We're going to, cool. HBO is so important to us. What else can we buy quickly? Hurry up. What else is available? Oh, cool. He wants to make something great. And then you got 4 people making deals, right? All these studio execs making deals. And then it's like, well, it's all going to the same place. Which, I guess that makes sense. But the brand of HBO, which had that quality bar, is suddenly now going to not have the same bar because they're going to have 10 other people making those decisions. You know what I mean?
I think it's still going to be there. It's HBO Max. So it's even more. It's like, that's why they titled it HBO.
Are you being bought by them? That was the most like,
bro,
it's HBO, but Max, Andy.
It's everything that you already get with your cable subscription HBO, plus Warner Brothers content, Cartoon Network, all them other things, DC Universe. That's HBO Max, bro. That's to the max, to infinity and beyond. I don't think that's gonna die. Everybody, I think that you're stuck with HBO in your head. Home box office. It's Sunday. It's 8:00 Sunday. Let's go watch HBO. That is very much still gonna be the same thing, but they're gonna say, let's watch HBO Max.
But to be fair, like I saw it as a streaming thing because I would just go watch it later through HBO Go. So yeah, but it still had like that.
Gone.
It was a studio.
It
was a studio that had like made really good, usually good choices. Like there were more often than not. When HBO released something, you knew it was going to be quality. It's not it's not TV, it's HBO. So my problem is like I want that filter to still carry over to HBO Max, which they're saying it's going to. But I guess my final thoughts on this is I don't think it's gonna. I think that when you make that much content, eventually it's gonna start wearing because you can't be that good on the quality if you're starting to like quadruple your output.
Okay, well that's a different argument. Then maybe doubling the output means dropping the quality. That's possible.
Quantity over quality is what's going to end up happening. You're going to say it's for quality, but I don't know if they can sustain it. Myra, thank you for the support again. I'm more worried about the quality of the shows from HBO, that they will be more focused on pumping out new shows for the app like Netflix. Thank you, Myra. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at, where they're going to start saying, well, yeah, we're HBO now. Totally maxed out HBO. So cool, let's do 4 of those Game of Thrones show. Just get them out. You have to get them out within the year. Hurry up, quick. But they're gonna do it quickly. They're not gonna be as good, and then suddenly we're gonna oversaturate the market, which Netflix does. Because my argument is Netflix has quantity, but their quality is pretty crappy. Their Netflix original does not stand for like to me HBO beats them in quality while Netflix kills them in quantity right now, and that's the reality, right? So what's gonna happen is are they just trying to race to beat to Netflix? That'll be frustrating.
I don't think so. Netflix has this issue, and I think they're the only ones that have this issue outside of like Bezos. It's called too much money syndrome. They're throwing money at every writer, director, and actor and stand-up comedian possible. A stand-up comedian 5 years ago who can't sell out a nightclub for $20,000 is getting $5 million deals from Netflix just to do a stand-up special. It's ridiculous. We can't use Netflix as an example. One thing I can say here is this. Quantity and quality. Bro, every time I go to In-N-Out Burger, it tastes the same. It's delicious. There's tons and tons of cars and millions of people that go to In-N-Out Burger. When you have a system and it works, you just know how to make it happen. They have quantity and they have quality. I don't think that, Myra said about, they don't want it to be like Netflix where it's just like, okay, green light, green light, green light, green light. Yeah, all green light, go. HBO, that's not how HBO gets down. They don't operate like that. Now, are you saying that AT&T is going to come in and change that? That's a huge suspicion that I'm not even going to start touching. Got to wait and see what happens. But HBO, as we know them and as they are now, they filter out scripts. Bro, when I read the article, when I was covering the news, they get 200 to 300 series every year to come to HBO, and they only greenlight like 12 of them. That is a rigorous process, bro. And it's so long as they're doing that, the quality that comes to HBO Max is going to be fire no matter what.
Right, but the argument I'm making is they won't have the time to do that anymore because HBO Max, Jason Kilar is going to be like, no, we need 10 times the output. So great,
no.
HBO Max, you still do what you're doing, but double your output. HBO, that's what we need you to do. And by the way, we have 4 other people doing this.
Hire double though.
But the problem is like, you can't. I mean, we had this problem with Screen Junkies Plus. Like, you can't just make people who are good at doing what they're doing and suddenly tell them to make a dozen more things. Like, it actually doesn't usually work. And so that's the problem with what HBO Max is filtering. It's like coming in and sort of tapping it all, like organizing in one face. Okay, but then how do you actually make sure you're getting original content? That's the problem all these streaming apps are worried about, And it's all about like going to the power players, like the known entities out there in town to sort of see, all right, well, what do you got? Ryan Murphy, what do you got? Ava, what do you got? Like they're just going to anybody who's relatively a name who's produced stuff. Shonda Rhimes, can you come to us? Would be exclusive to us. And that's sort of, it's smart. Doesn't guarantee anything, but then you get something like Space Force, where it's like, all right, cool, let's get Greg Daniels, who made Office, and he'll team up with Steve Carell to give us an awesome new comedy that we're going to own here at Netflix. We're going to pay a fortune for it. And then they get in at Space Force, and you're like, oh, this is not very good. What a waste of money. So that's the problem, right? So they're betting huge money down on big names that don't guarantee the eyeballs. And so my problem is, like, if that's what they're going to do over in HBO Max 2, and then the quality goes down, that's going to be a bummer. And all I'm saying is, from everything I've read about, this what Jason's doing over there as a sort of head of now the whole company that AT&T's now owns, I understand the consolidation, but I don't know how you keep the quality.
How I feel. Look, what is the most popular show to ever hit Freak? What is the most popular show to ever hit HBO? Ever?
Game of Thrones. Oh, wait.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's Game of Thrones. And look, It took a year and a half, almost 2 years for season 7. About that same amount of time for season 8. What happened?
Well, also, don't forget, it was not a huge hit.
It didn't work.
It wasn't a huge hit out the gate either. It took a few seasons before it really became that sort of water cooler phenomenon.
No, 3 seasons. By season 3, I would say it was already the show, the best show.
I would around season 3 is when everyone was like, "Oh man, this is right." And then
exactly Red Wedding and all that. Yeah, so we know what time it is. So look, we're in a huge drought right now. George R.R. Martin sitting on his couch with his suspenders and some coffee and shit, reading a book, still chilling, farting and shit, not making a show.
Trying to make
because
that
we don't have enough content.
Book. Yeah,
we would have been had House of the Dragon. We would have been had the freaking the Long Night. Because we don't have enough resources to pump these Game of Thrones shows out, bro.
But what's taking so long? That is exactly the problem. Thank you for saying it out loud. We should be pumping these out. There's the word Jody just said. We should be pumping these out. It doesn't work that way, man. That's not how good content. You can't just pump out good content. Good content takes time.
They took it slow and it failed.
Right, because they shot 2 and and HBO killed the one with, what was it, Kate Blanchett or whoever it was. They killed it because of Naomi Watts. They killed it because they didn't like it. They realized it wasn't good enough. And good for them, man.
That's good.
What studios have the balls to like spend the money and say, no, we're not doing it, and then kill it?
There are so many talented people out there. If you put out the casting calls to talented Hollywood, you will get movie-level, Oscar-winning level people throwing in treatments and scripts to HBO Max for approval.
Well, why,
the
dude? If that was the case,
they didn't have the infrastructure back then. Pump those bad boys out, bro.
Give me as many shows as I can Netflix has the infrastructure. Netflix has an infrastructure, and they're not doing award-winning things yet. It takes time. Ozark's now the one that pops through.
Yeah, what do you mean? They just won an Oscar last year, Academy Award. Roma, whatever it was.
They didn't win. They got a nomination. Sure, it's taken them years, and that's all they did. They've invested in a lot that don't get them. Roma didn't win Best Picture. What are you talking about?
It won Best Foreign Film, I believe.
Oh, sure.
It won an Oscar. I know it won an Oscar. Roma, that won.
Yeah, it cost them a fortune. They made no money on it, and yes, they got an Oscar, which helped them in the cred. Yeah. They spent the money to get him to sort of show, we'll do this type of thing.
Expected to be, the next 2 years, expected to be flooded with streaming movies. Netflix, HBO Max, they're all going to be at the Academy Awards, bro.
Well, yeah, especially since the rules have changed. All right, but anyway, we're beating the dead horse of this. I think the quality will suffer. The final thoughts on this HBO topic are, I wanted to just touch upon Snyder Cut. I don't think it really matters. Like, I don't really think.
Stop comparing Netflix, guys. People in the chat, Sean. Netflix is not HBO.
Yeah, it's not.
Please, you guys have to understand that. Netflix is just throwing stuff to the wall to see what sticks because they have an unlimited amount of money to do this. They're an anomaly. HBO is known for the quality. They're not Netflix.
Correct.
Please,
Netflix has taken a long time to get where they're at. But quality takes time, and Netflix has been rushing into it. And granted, it took them time to get the quantity. But that's the problem with Netflix right now. I'm like, yeah, sometimes it's good. Like Ozark is good, Stranger Things. Like I'm not trying to knock it completely. Tiger King was fun. Like they do have some moments that break through for them, of course. They need to. But it's not like Jody's saying. You can't just pump. They're not pumping out like they could. They have the money and the infrastructure. They're still not pumping out as many as you'd think. Which Jody makes it sound like you can do endlessly, but you can't. So HBO, that premium, it's a harder thing to find those people who actually know what they're doing and then have quality control who come in and say, no, that's not good enough, or wait, let's take this back to the writing room. That's what's nice about HBO is they take their time between series. The HBO Max, Jason Clare's making it clear, like, no, you guys don't have time anymore. We need 100 more shows. Where are they? I need them now. If you don't get them to me, we're going to let you go because we need missionaries here at the company and we need to move fast. We're at the turning of the time. It's like craziness that's happening.
If they adapt that culture, they're doomed to fail and be a bootleg Netflix.
Right, but then the problem is also if they wait too long for their content, then they're also in trouble. Yeah. We've made this argument. Warner Brothers to me is the next best one besides Disney. Like if you got Disney, which has bought so many brands and stuff.
I think Warner Brothers is the best.
And then Warner Brothers, well, I think right now Disney's got sort of more value, but I think Warner Brothers with their catalog can step up and really be a competitor to Disney is what I'm getting at. They're the only ones out there that I think have it between HBO and all the networks you said. Yeah, they have potential to actually make a dent. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Myra said AT&T now owns them, so they won't care of quality. That's exactly what I'm getting at. So
it's a possibility.
Look, these layoffs are, I think, probably wise. It's a way to cut costs. It's a way to sort of, organize, restructure everything. But
my issue's not the app. My issue's not the app. It's those comic books getting targeted, and it's all those the video game division going or staying. It's other things that AT&T is worrying me about. I'm not worried about what they master in telecommunications and media. I'm not worried about that.
The only reason I was bringing in Snyder Cut, not to bash it, because I honestly I don't have a beef with the cut anymore. Obviously, we have a beef with some of the cultists in the group. But
I'm actually can't wait for it.
I want to see it, but all I'm going to say is, like, for the amount of money and the pressure that they're under, I don't know if that's going to bring that kind of return. I really still. We've had this argument. I had it on Darth Daddy Lunga's earlier today. Like, and I don't say this to knock. People will take me out of context. But it's like, I genuinely want to see it. I'm curious, but I'm a niche consumer, right? I'm a nerd who's seen the first one, who didn't like it, who knows what's happening and knows the backstory, and I'm curious. I'm invested. The common general moviegoer is not. He's seen it already. He or she's seen the movie, didn't like it, probably thought it was okay, and doesn't probably care. Oh, but wait, this is what Zach wanted, and oh wait, but Steppenwolf's spinier now, and oh wait, but it's gonna have. I get it for fans who are jazzed and excited. General movie-going public's already seen it and doesn't care. So for Warner to have spent that much money and make that such a big thing at the launch, I mean, look, good for them, but that should have been like one of dozens of announcements, right? And the problem was it was the only one that we've seen for months. So it's sort of like, great, it has a big social media impact of 100,000 people all out there going crazy for it, and they needed that, but they could have had so many more if they'd counted their cards better and actually bought a couple other products or other films or things to announce, and they didn't. So it's really strange. And I'm not knocking on the cut. I'm going to watch it. I'm very curious. But I mean, it sounds like you agree. There's not that is not going to get huge. I really don't think it's going to get enough subscribers to warrant all the stuff they've been doing.
Bro, Andy, they greenlit it for 2021. It was a last minute decision, and that lets you know, because if they had this planned, it would have launched with the Snyder Cut. They greenlit it on the announcement to say next year you'll get it. This was the Zack Snyder's Justice League is a marketing tool. That's all it is. It's like, hey, HBO Max, Snyder. Because if they really believed in it, it would be in theaters. If they really thought it would do well and make hundreds of millions of dollars, it would have been in theaters, and they would have shoved it to a streaming service. I'm not trying to belittle the streaming service, but I mean, Zack Snyder's Justice League is a film. You know what I mean? That's a summer blockbuster from 2017. But even they understand that it's not going to make that much money. But what it will do is create that buzz and hype. That's why they was freaking going ham on Twitter a few months back when they announced it, back on June 20th, I believe it was, May 20th. So we know what time it is, but it's not a killer app because it don't come out till next year. And by that time, I'm pretty sure HBO Max will come to the table with a lot better things, that a thicker library and have original content. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think
but when it comes out, it's going to be the hottest thing.
Well, and I think it would have been smarter to announce it at Fandom. Like they should have been part of like a huge announcement of here's all the DC stuff that's coming. And I think Fandom is I'm glad you brought that up to wrap up this segment. Yeah. Fandom, I think, is a brilliant move to finally take control of DC's properties and the excitement the fans have and sort of what's coming. And I'm excited to see what comes out of that. And so, good move and good for Zach to be there. Everything else, like I think, positive. But yeah, there's still I'm curious what that's actually going to do for it. And you're right, it's not a knock. It's like if they thought that was going to make a lot of money, they would absolutely put it in theaters first, or they would wait or hold on, because 2021 they could put it in theaters in theory, right? But to make that announcement that it's going here, they're anybody who's putting something strictly on streaming is admitting, well, it's not worth theatrically. So again, not a knock. It's still a value to them. They put a lot of money up for it, but it is the point. And how many people are really going to subscribe to HBO Max, beyond the
2021?
What do you think that number is? How many subscribers? Let's make the bet. We were doing this before. What's your bet on how many subscribers will actually come for the Snyder Cut to HBO Max?
I would come just for it and sign up for the $16 a month. I would say from now until the release, they might get about 50,000.
See, I was going to be more generous. I was going to say 150,000.
Oh, that's 150,000 just for the Snyder film. No, I think I'll give you 150,000 for HBO Max and the Snyder, but
Sure,
only
sure.
people were like, I'm only gonna watch. Oh, that's.
Oh, I
only
see what you're saying.
oh,
Only, yeah, who are only like I've only came. I don't care about anything else.
exactly.
Sure, it'll
Like
be lower.
the only reason why
I
you're
think the
here is
Snyder
because of
people.
that film.
Yeah, I was gonna say 150,000
Yeah.
just for people like, oh, okay, well, I wanted to check out that thing, and I guess that's if that times $16 isn't nothing to laugh at. That's it's better than 20 or 100 to be fair, but they want to be in the millions, and so they need
Nah, it's not
more
gonna
than
be
that.
millions.
No, I'm just saying. I don't think anyone's saying this should, but
I don't think so.
they need to be in the millions is what Kalara is saying. So and then Bunda thinks like a million people want to watch. Bunda's saying 1 million Snyder Cut subscribers.
Oh, the numbers are gonna come out. So
Yeah,
what we need
we'll
to do
see. We'll take your
is,
bet. How
let's say
many Snyder Cut and Snyder Cut enthusiasts you think are signing up to HBO Max strictly for that? And again, just out of curiosity, we're not trying to bash and say it's not there. These are large numbers, but it's not like the millions that Bunda's saying is what my opinion is. Alexander, thank you for sending. Now with the termination of Paramount consent decrees from a federal judge, can we talk about the huge position Amazon is now in acquiring AMC theaters? I'm not up to date on what happened with Paramount. Or this consent degrees. I have to Google that. I'll try and figure that out.
But I've always been a huge proponent of Amazon buying AMC theaters and releasing their prime content strictly in their own theaters. I think that's the way of the future. Netflix having their own theaters, Amazon having their own theaters, and then releasing theater quality stuff.
Yeah. All right. So sorry, This is the Paramount and this judge. Today, a federal judge addresses the possibility that a major studio will merge with a major theatrical chain because they've been sort of holding that out and not letting that be. Since the Paramount consent decrees has been in effect since the 40s, where government pursued major antitrust action against film studios, which in those days were vertically aligned with national theater chains. As a result of the Supreme Court landmark decision, the studios had to divest themselves of their exhibitor holdings. Court-approved settlement then established rules governing the licensing relationship between certain studios, such as Paramount, Warner Brothers. Other studios, such as Disney, weren't part of any of the original case, but have nevertheless been guided by these consent decrees. So now they're saying that's going to potentially change, and now studios could, in theory, buy theater chains. So yeah, we've been predicting that for a while, and Amazon or Apple to me are the no-brainers. I think Amazon and Apple have so much money.
Yeah, there was something that was put into effect some 50, 60 years ago. There might be that 1948 law where they said it was a federal ruling that theater production studios cannot own theater chains because of conflict of interest and how it would drastically make the market unfair. That law, I believe, expired last year, or it's about to expire. That's why it's kind of huge. I remember reading up on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, Amazon, Apple are two huge companies that could afford to buy a theater chain and decide, you know what, we're going to own it, and that way they'll get in the business that way, and it probably would be smart.
Yeah.
With AMC and everybody out of money right now, if they can swoop in and buy huge stakes. I mean, so is it dangerous? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? Yes.
Scary.
But thank you, Alexander, for saying that over. Overall, so that's what we talked about. But so much we'll find out as this continues with the HBO Max information. So stay tuned. We're not going anywhere live. We've got lots more to talk about, including Spider-Man 3, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and we're going to be taking your comments, questions. So stay tuned. But for those of you who are watching this on YouTube after the fact, you missed the whole show. I cut it down because of the YouTube algorithm. We're checking out here for our pre-taped. Don't go anywhere if you're watching us live. You can always catch us Tuesdays here, 9 p.m. And you can always catch me on Wednesdays over on Jody's Corner. So be sure to subscribe to Jody's Corner if you haven't already. His link is in my description. And then catch back here on Thursday for Nerd Wars. All you watching the playback, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Tune in later. We'll see you there. Bye.
Deuces.